Well, it was a joy for Bryce Young, not so much for Will Levis and Hendon Hooker. Levis, the former Kentucky quarterback, fell all the way out of the first round. Might be the biggest name still on the board, but that is right beside Tennessee's quarterback in Hendon Hooker. And the question is, where do these two land? So taking a look at CBS Sports Round 2 mock draft, well, they'll slip even further down the list than initially expected here. With the first round of the draft in the books, it is time to look ahead to what could transpire on day 2. Let's welcome in our NFL expert and former NFL quarterback, Brady Quinn. Now, Brady, CBS Sports Round 2's mock, it begins with a run of DBs. So Cam Smith to the Steelers, Branch to the Cardinals, Porter to the Lions. Do you agree with those moves?
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, if Pittsburgh stays put, there's a chance that they might trade out of that pick, especially if there's a team looking to go up and get a Hendon Hooker or get Will Levis in the second round and get control of it. So there's always that potential. You see a lot of movement really in the subsequent rounds after the first round. But Pittsburgh could use a cornerback. If it was me and I was drafting there in Pittsburgh, I'd be looking at Joey Porter Jr. He's obviously a Pennsylvania product. His father played there. It seems like it's a match made in heaven at this point. So that's the direction that I would go if they're going to stay put and take a cornerback. Obviously, Cam Smith could make some sense here too. He's a heck of a player. But I could see maybe Detroit then, if they're going to take a cornerback, you swap these two picks in the mock draft. Everybody wins, but you get a little better story about it with Joey Porter Jr. following in his dad's footsteps.
I say keep it in the family when you can. All right, you just mentioned the quarterback situation. Now in this mock at number 38, they have Las Vegas Raiders taking Will Levis. Levis was expected, of course, to be drafted in the first round potentially. He sat there all night, was not drafted. The question, though, the Raiders, they have Jimmy G. So does Levis to Las Vegas make sense?
It makes sense, I think, from the standpoint that, look, he's a smart player. Even though there's kind of a lack of decision-making, I think he could handle all the things that Josh McDaniels would require of him within that offense. And the good thing is he wouldn't be rushed to get in there. You got Jimmy G, who's under contract for a few years, but really it's a solid 1-year commitment for Will Levis to kind of sit, learn, and watch, then move on from there. So could make a lot of sense, I think, for him to go to Las Vegas. That's definitely one of the teams that I'd be targeting, kind of putting down for him to go to. But again, Josh McDaniels puts a premium on take care of the football. I could also see them looking pretty closely at Hendon Hooker here, especially since there's no rush to get into play because you have Jimmy G, even though Hooker's dealing with that ACL injury.
You could also learn from Brian Hoyer there as well, 14 years of NFL experience. You can pick that brain quite a bit. Now, you just mentioned our next guy, another quarterback that could have potentially been off the draft board or early there is Hendon Hooker. In this mock, it has him falling all the way to 47 and going to the Washington Commanders. So thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a need for Washington. I kind of get the sense that if they're just going to roll out with Sam Howell this year, then maybe they're setting themselves up for the 2024 draft to be in close proximity to that number 1 pick, where you could get a guy like Caleb Williams, who everyone is presuming is going to be the number 1 overall pick out of Southern Cal, and I would tend to agree with them. He probably would have been the number 1 quarterback in this year's draft class because you really don't have many concerns or issues with the size or anything else for that matter. So, it would make some sense because it's a need, but again, if Sam Howell's in there, I don't know how long of a leash he would end up having to be the guy. And if you had to rush Hooker in there, considering that he's dealing with a knee injury, I don't know that he's going to be ready, or at least 100% by the start of the season. So that would be the concern there with Washington taking him at this spot. But it is definitely a need for Washington. You'd think they'd have to get a quarterback in this draft.
Now, many analysts, they were super high on our next player, Michael Mayer, out of Notre Dame, a school you know a thing or two about. Still safe to say that he's the best tight end in this draft class. Do you think he lasts all the way to 58 in the Dallas Cowboys?
I don't know. I think that's wishful thinking. I think Dallas is going to have to move up if they want to get him. I would think Detroit's still in play, too. They could use a tight end, considering they traded away T.J. Hawkinson last year to the Minnesota Vikings, and they haven't replaced him so far. And he can join his Notre Dame teammate Brock Wright there as well at the tight end spot. And I have 2 guys who are both very capable of helping you run the football, which helps out obviously Jahmyr Gibbs, their first-round draft pick, but also effective in the passing game. So I think it makes sense for Dallas to be a good fit. It's definitely a need. I'm not sure he lasts to 58, though.
Cowboys fans would be excited about that one if he does last. All right, the next player I want to get your opinion on, the receiver out of Oklahoma, and Marvin Mims. What do you think? Right now, the CBS Sports mock has him going 63rd overall to the Chiefs.
Love it, love it, love it. Again, though, he's too fast, too big of a playmaker to last this long. I think you're going to see a run here on wide receivers and defensive backs. Kind of how we saw in the front end of this mock draft. and I don't think he makes it to 63. He's a big-time playmaker. He makes a ton of sense for Kansas City's system, especially with the big arm of Patrick Mahomes. But again, he's too fast. He's not lasting 63, in my opinion. I'd be surprised. You can see all the other talent he's up against. Guys like Trey Palmer, who are fast. Obviously, Jalen Hyatt's another speed demon out of Tennessee. Mims is right there in that group. So I would expect to see a run, and I'm not sure he's going to be there by the time this mock draft has him being selected by the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think we should rename this segment to Why Brady Quinn Disagrees with the CBS Sports Mock Draft. But, we'll just continue on. We're going to look at the round 3 now.
I didn't do the draft. I don't know who did this. I just get thrown it. I'm saying. I'm a
We
little
want
higher
your
on
opinion. We want your opinion.
I'm a little higher on these guys than I think maybe whoever did the mock draft is.
All right. We're going to look at round 3, also taking place tonight. So it's going to feature more notable players. And if we take a look at that CBS Sports mock that was done, Brady, is there someone on here that stands out to you? 2 guys. I'll be a homer for a second. Say Isaiah Foskey. He's an incredibly impactful player, a tremendous young man. I think he showcased some of his athleticism too, and his ability to kind of drop into coverage and not just be a pass rusher. But he's a guy who I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't make it into the 3rd round, instead ends up getting taken in the 2nd round. The other player is Nathaniel Dell, a wide receiver, an absolute blazer and tremendous route runner. He's undersized, but that's fine. Going to Chicago, adding in more firepower too there for Justin Fields makes a lot of sense. He's another guy, though. I think you get teams with some varying opinions. He could very well sneak in the 2nd round. And the other player that you hear people talking about that I think can make a big impact too here, potentially in the 2nd round, again, not so much the 3rd, is Jonathan Mingo, a wide receiver. Everyone's looking for speed. They're looking for playmakers. You see more and more teams using 3 wide receiver sets on the field, so you've got to have depth there. It's not just those 3 that are out there starting. It's also the guys who are rotating in that are 4 and 5. And sometimes now you're keeping 6, 7 guys at wide receiver on the active roster. So you have to be able to have some depth there to deal with injuries and obviously the amount of work that's placed on their shoulders in a 17-game season. So those are just 3 of the guys that I think could very well still go in the 2nd round. I've got a little, again, different opinion than maybe some people who are doing the mock draft for this. 2nd round, 3rd round. All I'm saying is I'm excited that I might officially get a Dell NFL jersey. So wherever he goes, I'm a fan. All right, Brady Quinn.
Make them, right? Can't you just do that, go and make those online?
We could, but I want it to be official. And I'm going to be a fan wherever he plays.
Okay, there you go.
Go Patriots. All right, Brady Quinn, we appreciate you here on CBS Sports HQ. Always a pleasure chatting with you. If you want pick-by-pick analysis on tonight and throughout the whole weekend, you got to check out the CBS Sports app. All of our NFL and draft experts, they're on hand, including Brady himself, Ryan Wilson,
Never had
Frisco,
an opinion about anything
Jonathan
before.
Jones. All of these fellas, they have such strong opinions, which is what makes this interesting. So download that CBS Sports app today.